Welcome to The Explainer. Today, we're diving into what could be a massive shift in the AI hardware market. From an investor's point of view, we're going to look at how Google's TPU is starting to look like a real, credible threat to Nvidia's dominance. And trust me, this isn't just a story about tech. It's about margins, it's about moats, and it's about how a whole trillion-dollar industry might get revalued.
All right, so here's our game plan for today. We'll kick things off by talking about the undisputed king, Nvidia. Then we'll get into Google's secret weapon. After that, we'll look at how this whole battle could be won on cost, or TCO. We'll then break down a huge deal from Anthropic that's making waves. Next, we'll see how Google is attacking Nvidia's biggest defense. And finally, we'll wrap it all up with the big investor takeaway.
Okay, first up, let's set the stage. To really get why there's an opening for a challenger here, you have to understand not just that Nvidia is on top, but the huge economic problem that their dominance creates for literally every other company trying to build AI.
You can just feel the tension here, right? I mean, when the CEO of OpenAI is talking about rough vibes because Google's AI model Gemini is getting all the attention, that's a big deal. But here's the real kicker. A huge part of Gemini's success comes from the custom hardware it was trained on, Google's own chips. So it looks like a software rivalry is actually a hardware war heating up.
So here's the bottom line. Nvidia, no question, is the king of the jungle. They're the ones powering this whole AI revolution. But that power costs a fortune. Companies are shelling out insane amounts of money just to buy the chips, that's the CapEx, and then even more to actually run them, that's the OpEx. This kind of cost pressure creates a huge, powerful incentive for everyone to start looking for a cheaper alternative.
So, if Nvidia is the king, who's the challenger? Well, that would be Google and its secret weapon, the TPU. And you need to understand, this isn't some new knee-jerk reaction to the latest AI hype. This is a plan that's been in motion for over a decade. And just look at this timeline. This whole thing started way back in 2013. That's when Google did the math and had this shocking realization. To handle the AI they saw coming, they would have to literally double the size of their data centers. That was an existential threat. So they decided they had to build something totally new, from the ground up, specifically for AI. And this right here, this is the core difference in how they think. Nvidia built an amazing general-purpose tool. Their GPU is like a Swiss Army knife. It's great for graphics, gaming, and AI. But Google, they didn't build a Swiss Army knife. They forged a surgeon's scalpel. The TPU was designed to do one thing, and one thing only: run machine learning tasks as efficiently as humanly possible. Now, this quote, this is everything. If you're an investor, this is the key to the whole thesis. Google's advantage isn't just about having a slightly faster chip. It's that they designed the entire system to work together. The chips, the networking, the cooling, everything was built in-house to work in perfect harmony. That's their real moat. Okay, so the secret sauce here is something called the Inner Chip Interconnect, or ICI. But look, let's not get bogged down in the tech specs. What does this actually mean for an investor? Well, it means Google can build these massive AI supercomputers that are bigger, way more flexible, and, this is the important part, cheaper to build and run than systems that are just pieced together from different vendors. Which, of course, brings us to the most important part for any of us, the money. We're talking total cost of ownership, or TCO. This is where the real battle is going to be fought.
Okay, so TCO, it's kind of like buying a car, right? The sticker price is one thing, but what about gas, insurance, and repairs over the next 5 years? That's the real cost of owning it. It's the same with these massive computer systems. The price of the chip is just the beginning. You also have to pay for the power, the cooling, and all the upkeep. That's TCO.
And then there's the other side of the coin, MFU. Think of this like the horsepower of a sports car. The brochure might say it has 700 horsepower, but how much of that can you actually use on a normal road? MFU asks the same question about these chips. You paid for all this theoretical power. How much of it are you really getting in the real world? A higher MFU is just way more efficient.
So when you put it all together, what do you get? Well, you get this. And these numbers are just wow. Even after Google adds its own profit margin, a customer like Anthropic could be looking at a TCO that's 30, maybe even 40% lower than what they'd get from Nvidia's latest stuff. And remember, these companies are spending billions. A cost advantage like that, it's a total game changer.
And if that last slide was a jab, this one is the knockout punch. This is where TCO and MFU come together. Because Google's whole system is so purpose-built, you just get more bang for your buck. You're using more of the power you actually paid for. And when you do the math, the cost for the actual work being done is, well, it's over 50% cheaper. That's an advantage that it's just impossible for the market to ignore.
Okay, so numbers on a spreadsheet are one thing, but what about the real world? Well, it turns out this isn't just theory anymore. We've just seen a massive real-world deal that proves the point.
Enter Anthropic. These guys are one of the top AI labs in the world, a direct competitor to OpenAI, and they just placed a huge, massive bet on Google. We're talking about a plan to use over 1 million TPU chips. Think about that for a second. This is a company whose entire business is built on having the absolute best, most efficient computing power. For them to make this move, it's an enormous vote of confidence.
And the way they structure the deal is just brilliant from an investor's point of view. It's a two-part attack. First, they're selling a huge chunk of chips directly to Anthropic. That puts Google in direct competition with Nvidia as a hardware seller. Second, they're renting out an even bigger chunk through Google Cloud. That not only brings in massive revenue, but also helps them win market share in the cloud wars.
So let's be crystal clear about what this means. This is not just a big sale. This is proof. This is one of the smartest players in the entire game standing up and saying, yep, the math works. Google's system gives us a real, tangible advantage when you're operating at a massive scale.
But look, having great hardware and a lower price tag, that's only half the story. To really take on the king, you have to attack their biggest, most powerful defense, the software moat known as CUDA.
For years, CUDA has been Nvidia's impenetrable fortress. Think of it like Apple's iOS. Once you're in that ecosystem with all your apps and your data, it's just a huge pain to switch to something else, right? That's CUDA for AI developers. It's so easy and so familiar to use that it basically locks them into Nvidia hardware.
So what's Google's plan to get around that? Well, it's actually pretty smart. They're not trying to build their own competing fortress. Instead, they're building bridges. They're making it super easy for developers to use the tools they already know and love, like PyTorch, right on top of Google's TPUs. They are systematically removing all the friction that would stop someone from switching to their cheaper, faster hardware.
All right, let's land the plane here. What does all of this mean for us as investors? How should we be thinking about the AI landscape now?
While the ripple effects could be huge, for Nvidia, you have to start asking, are those incredible 75% gross margins really safe if there's real competition? For Google, this could be a catalyst for a major re-rating by the market, turning its cloud business into something totally unique. And then there's everyone else. A whole new supply chain supporting TPUs could see a ton of value shift their way.
And that really leaves us with the big multi-trillion-dollar question, doesn't it? For so long, the story was just Nvidia. They were the only game in town. But that's just not true anymore. We now have a legitimate, high-performance, lower-cost competitor on the field. So the question you have to ask yourself now is, in a market with real competition, can anyone sustain 75% margins? Because the answer to that question, well, it could change absolutely everything.